Hello, peoples of the internet. Welcome back to another video. Today we, of course, as expected, we are going to be comparing the Doctor Sleep novel and the Doctor Sleep movie. If you don't know what Doctor Sleep is, what are you even doing here, really? I mean, I'm sorry, but make sure to subscribe. And without further ado, we're gonna start talking about the 2013 novel. Doctor Sleep is the 530-page sequel to the Shining novel, of which is different from the Shining movie for reference. And if you've seen the movie, the plot is pretty similar, of course, to the Doctor Sleep movie. So I'll spare you the details. As you all know, the story is decades later, where Danny Torrance is a grown man and meets a young girl who also is the Shining, and he has to defend her from a child-eating cult, basically. Okay, once again, I am surprised at how well written this book is. Though I really shouldn't be, because this isn't my first King book, but damn, the constant build up to a climax in the novel is so perfectly executed and written. You feel a constant power struggle between the good guys and the bad guys, one of which is always changing, and that keeps it entertaining and engaging. Okay, maybe it doesn't really get going until 200 pages in or so, or maybe less than that, but the build-up in the story is necessary for a well-crafted climax and story. It really does feel like some kind of war is going on in the book, and it does get crazy and omega epic. And one of the parts of the story near the end is marked with the subtitle, Matters of Life and Death, which, if you remember, is reminiscent of the first book. When I first saw that, I was like, whack! That's crazy, dog. But of course, this novel will never be great as The Shining, but it was a very enjoyable read, and it serves its purpose, which was to revisit the character of Dan Torrance and finish his story, and it is a welcome sequel to the acclaimed book. Now, the movie. The movie Doctor Sleep is 2.5 hours and is directed by Mike Flanagan. It came out last year in 2019 and stars Obi-Wan Kenobi. There was actually very good directing and acting in this movie. That's irrefutable. All the actors did great, I think, and I liked Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I liked the girl from Mission Impossible as Rose, and I also liked Abra. The acting was great. However, there wasn't a lot of character development, or at least, not as much as there could have been, maybe, so that's a downside. Even though the actors did good with what they had, some characters still felt a little empty, like Billy. But I would say the first 2 hours of this movie were entertaining, with a few bumps along the way, but overall well paced. However, as the movie was going pretty well, until I watched in horror as the third act crumbled before my eyes. I do not like the third act of this movie for reasons I will explain, although some of it was okay, But for me, at least, this was a large anchor that kind of weighed the movie down, because some things happen that are just kind of stupid. But at the same time, there were a lot of great aspects of the film, and so this dying third act was even more disappointing to me, given these circumstances. I mean, if you ignore that part, look at the movie from a whole, it's not that bad of a movie compared to some other stuff, and I really liked how they incorporated some Shining music into it. The instantly recognizable, creepy, spine-chilling chanting music that makes it sound like someone's suffocating. Yeah, that music. It's time to get real. We're going to compare the book and the movie. Major spoilers ahead. I repeat, major spoilers, of course, ahead. The sequel to The Shining, a famous story, of course would never be as good as The Shining itself, but the Doctor Sleep novel at least is a fun adventure that is able to show you what's become of Dan and finish his story, while having a little fun adventure that still has depth and stakes. Stakes, as in the book you actually feel danger present, but in the movie it seems like there's very few stakes, it appears, at least to me, because I didn't really care for the characters as much as in the book. Like I said, they could have shown more character development in the movie, though I understand maybe they didn't have enough run time to fill this in with so much going on. I can actually see some issues they might have had with this, as the movie seems to pick up speed perhaps too quickly, moving the plot ahead, whereas I feel the book was more of a steady build-up. One positive is that I was worried before viewing the movie how they were going to be able to show their psychic powers, because there's a lot of stuff in the book about traveling in their head, doing all kinds of weird actions in their mind with The Shining. But for one thing this movie pulled off very well was the showing of the psychic powers, and they managed it well by showing these super trippy camera shots of these people's feet lifting off the ground and the camera flipping, zooming in, all this crazy stuff. And then there's this great scene where Rose the Hat is floating through the air in her mind, and I thought this was cool and well done. Also, there were subtle changes from the book to the movie that really didn't impact the plot much, or maybe it did, but like there were only a dozen of the True Knot in the movie, whereas in the book there was like 30 or 40 members of the True Knot. And also, they didn't include anything about Abra's grandma or much, and they also cut the character John Dalton from the movie, who was like a doctor guy who was also helping them, and they also didn't show Snakebite Andy's dying speech, which I thought was a missed opportunity because that was a pretty cool scene in the book. Of course, I knew it would have been impossible to include all of the story. It's a King book for crying out loud. I'm just pointing out some differences. Also in the book, the parents of Abra were characters involved in the plot. They weren't just like side characters. But in the movie, the mom is not present, and the dad is some kind of side character that just stands in the background and drinks water, which I thought was kind of hilarious. But in the book, the parents actually were involved more. Now, I'm not one of those people who complains if they change stuff from novel to film. I think that's fine and great. Just the stuff they replace at least has to be good. This is not really the case with the third act of the movie. Maybe I'm nitpicking, I don't know. But, basically in the movie, Dan and Abra head back to the Overlook Hotel in the third act towards the end of the movie because of a brief explanation about how it may help them, and then it ends up barely being helpful in the plot. They just show Danny walking through the crumbling mansion, rubbing all that sweet, good nostalgia down our throats in a sequence that goes on for way too long, but at the same time delivers good fan service, so I guess it's not too bad. In the book, however, the Overlook burned down at the end of the Shining book, so they didn't go to the hotel in the Doctor Sleep book, but instead they went to the True Knots campground, which was still situated at the foundation of what used to be the hotel. Also in the book, it was only Dan and Billy who went to Colorado. Abra was only there in her mind. But yeah, I did enjoy some of the nostalgia throw up, if I'm quite honest. It's not throw up, it was good. It was a cool sequence. Especially some of the shots in the lake and mountains. It was cool, and they had the remastered Shining theme, which I really enjoyed. And after this, basically, Abra and Dan go in the hotel, and Rose the Hat arrives in the movie, who is the leader of the True Knot. And then Dan does this really dumb flashbacks of when he was a kid in the hotel, using new actors for all the scary classic bits, which was unnecessary, as they could have just easily used shots from the Shining movie as flashbacks, but I guess I can't blame them, as they probably had a lot of fun filming in the old hotel set. But anyways, Dan and Abra beat Rose the Hat in the movie way, way, way too easily, like she wasn't even a threat, really. In the book, it was a challenge to take down the True Knot, and there were many times where the bad guys held the upper hand, which made it exciting. Then, in an epic conclusion, they killed Rose. In the movie, however, Rose seems to barely a threat and is killed off fairly quickly. And they did the unspeakable. They did something so cheesy, I didn't believe it when it happened. They made the hotel's spirit infest Danny, so he got all mad, and then he went to try and kill Abra with the axe. Okay, let me get this straight. It took a few months for the hotel to drive Jack Torrance insane, and now it's like boom, Danny is insane and evil in an instant? That just makes no sense at all. And I keep saying Danny instead of Daniel. That also makes no sense at all. So, in the climax, doesn't mix too well with the low character development. It's like, I didn't really care enough for the characters to be scared for them. I would have rather the movie cut out some of the more stuff from the book, if at least they made me care for the characters more, especially Abra, who seems to not really even have a personality in the movie besides angry teenager with psychic powers. Okay, ignore the absolute silliness of Dan turning evil, as he turns good again, and then the hotel burns down in the movie. Here was where I lost it. The hotel burned down in the Shining novel, and killed Jack Torrance in the novel. No, I did not ask for the hotel to be burned down if it already wasn't burned in the Shining movie. At least of all, killing Danny was the last straw for me, you evil Dr. Sleep movie. The whole point of Dan and his mother surviving in the first one was to forge a new life for themselves. Survive, Yet Danny dies. What is supposed to be a tale of finishing Dan's story and what happened to him is taken in a new direction that I don't agree with. I would have rather had the True Knot torture and eat Abra's steam than them killing off Danny. Danny. Why do I keep saying Danny? I meant Dan Torrance. I'm sorry, but that's just not acceptable, especially after most of the movie being pretty decent. It just kind of defeats the purpose of his survival in The Shining when you know Dan is gonna die still in his 40s in the same damn hotel. Maybe I'm still in denial about his death, the stages of grief, denial, anger, bargaining, then depression, and so on. Because in the book he didn't die, but I don't know. Never mind, I didn't say anything. Okay, and then at the end of the movie, Aber goes in the bathroom, and there's Mrs. Massey, room 237, lady again, and for what, like the millionth time, and this ending makes no sense. Bro, this movie had to have shown this one 237 lady demon like 5 times or something. As a real quote from my brother said, at least if they're gonna keep showing this lady, at least show the younger one. Okay, I think I've been way too harsh on this movie because there are a lot of great things, and maybe I also need a rewatch of the movie to think better of it. But anyways, most of the things I had problems with were in the third act, but the rest of the movie is pretty good. Maybe my perception was changed slightly because I read the book before viewing the movie. Like as I said, the acting in the movie was phenomenal, the directing was great, the baseball boy scene, if you know what I'm talking about, was squirmish and terrifying. The villain is fleshed out and you can understand them, unlike other movies. The build-up was pretty good, and it just spewed out into action sequences, perhaps too quickly, perhaps. But, everyone, that's just about it. Most of the Dr. Sleep movie was pretty great, I guess, except for the third act, which I didn't like. It was still a pretty good movie. I liked the movie, okay? I just liked the book better. And I thoroughly enjoyed the book very good, which in my mind is how the story really played out. For your reference, I would say The Shining movie is better than The Shining novel, because I also read that book a little while, like a year ago. But the Dr. Sleep novel is better than the Dr. Sleep movie, in my opinion. And it is just kind of annoying, because the first part of the movie went so well, and then it was just destroyed, kind of. It wasn't destroyed, it was a good, I don't know what I'm saying. But, that's just about it. Thanks for watching, my prankster gangster.